Hey, what's going on social media? I am Mr. Insurance, Steve Ludwig. Today, I'm going to go over a question that has been asked me, and that is how does street legal UTV or ATV insurance work? So, insuring a UTV or an ATV is similar to insuring a car. You have a rate, a deductible, and coverages for various things like property damage and bodily injuries. The key differences here is that a street legal UTV needs to be specifically endorsed and covered for on-road usage. You may ensure that your insurance policy covers your UTV or ATV for an on-road use. If a street legal endorsement is not present, you are not covered for on-road usages, off-road usages only, or you would be for incidental road usage at best. Some companies might not phrase it that way, but if you ask for a street legal endorsement, you'll take the conversation in the right direction either way. This is far and away the most important aspect of street legal UTV and ATV insurance, and the one that's most often overlooked. Make sure that you review your documents and confirm that your vehicle is covered for full road usage with a street legal endorsement. Now, just as a note here, most on-road policies also cover off-road usage, but you should confirm that if you plan to use the trails, OHV areas, and similar spaces, that all of that is included. The company might still consider your side-by-side to be an off-road vehicle, and that's fine. That has more to do with their internal systems than it does with your coverage present. Now, your insurance card might say that your policy is a motorcycle, and again, that is okay too. That's usually because of how the vehicle is classified in the insurance company's system, but it can also come from how the vehicle is registered, as states like Montana and South Dakota register street legal UTVs as autocycles and four-wheel motorcycles, respectively. Now, in any case, the most important thing is that the policy covers unlimited on-road use and not a restricted form of road use like incidental coverage would. So, what is incidental coverage for road usage? Some companies offer incidental road use coverage for quick things like crossing roads when you're using trails. You don't want that unless all that you need is just that. But if you call an insurance company and say, I want to insure my UTV or ATV for road usage, they might assume that that's what you mean. So, be sure to clarify if that happens. So, do you really need insurance at all? If you only have a localized street legality, like the kind you would get with a town or county permit, your local laws might let you get by with just incidental coverage or even no coverage at all in some circumstances. This typically is the case in situations where you can only use a handful of roads, can only drive during certain hours, or can only use public roads for limited distances. Anything beyond that almost always requires on-road insurance, and it's a good thing that you have, even if it's not required. If your UTV has a license plate, you need full road use coverage with a street legal endorsement, not incidental road use coverage. But hey, again, be sure to say the magic words UTV or ATV insurance with a street legal endorsement. So, how much does all this cost, street legal UTV and ATV insurance? The cost of insuring a street legal UTV is usually closer to a motorcycle than it is to a car. The exact rate will depend on personal factors like credit history, driving record, and even your zip code. But if you've insured a road going motorcycle recently, you should have a pretty solid idea of what you're going to expect. And if you're a motorcyclist, we're talking like Honda rates, not Ducati rates. Each state has a minimum requirement for road going insurance, which brings us to the most common question that we have ever received over the course of making thousands of UTVs and ATVs street legal through our street legal and ATV UTV services through dirtlegal.com. So, does my insurance need to match the state where I live, or is the state where my vehicle is registered? Will that work? Street legal UTV or ATV insurance coverage needs to match the state where you live, not the state where your vehicle is registered. This is because each state has a unique minimum requirements that all road going vehicles must meet. Some states also have a special caveat, like requiring that you insure a vehicle when it's in storage or in an undrivable condition. What will my insurance actually look like? When you look at the nuts and bolts of street legal ATV and UTV insurance, it's usually the same sort of coverage that you would get for a car, truck, or motorcycle. You've got bodily injury, uninsured motorists, flexible deductibles. It's all pretty similar, really. The big variable here is how your UTV is registered. If it's in Montana or South Dakota, it will likely be considered a motorcycle for insurance purposes, even though you don't need a motorcycle license to operate it. If you're street legal through another state or on a localized basis, your policy might function a little differently. One common thread to be will be the same. Your UTV or ATV needs to be insured for full road usage with a street legal endorsement. If it isn't, you can't go on the road. So, hey, street legal UTV insurance to cost about the same as insuring an adventure motorcycle or a cruisers. So, what do I say during the application process? Start by explaining what your UTV or ATV is and how and where it's registered. For example, I say I have a Mahindra Roxor UTV registered in Montana as a street legal quadricycle. Request full road use coverage with a street legal endorsement. Be sure to clarify that you don't just want incidental road usage coverage unless that is all you need. Insurance companies like to know your UTV or ATV won't be used as a daily driver as well. So be sure to tell them if you have a primary vehicle. Also, be sure to confirm that your on-road coverage also covers off-road usage like driving on on-highway vehicle areas, trails, and public lands. You might be asked for pictures also showing certain safety equipment installed on your UTV and copies of your title and registration paperwork. So how does insurance work with an out-of-state LLC? Well, as we covered earlier in this video, registering your UTV under an LLC in another state essentially makes that business the owner of the vehicle instead of you. If you went this route or are considering it, there might be some unique insurance aspects that apply to you. For insurance purposes, anyone making a claim on a vehicle must have an insurable interest in it. In other words, they must own it or otherwise have a financial stake in it. And that usually includes an LLC. To this end, the LLC is usually added as an additional interest on your policy to establish the tie between you, the LLC, and the vehicle that you are insuring. Although insurance companies aren't willing to put this sort of thing in writing, we have on good authority that your claim will not be denied just because your vehicle is registered to an out-of-state LLC. As always, be sure to read your policy and confirm the details of your coverage with your agent. We cannot guarantee or claim success because we are not attorneys and we are insurance agents, but again, I'm not a psychic. Similarly, if the state you file a claim in is different from the state on your UTV license plate and registration, that's no different than having the same thing happen in a car. As long as you explain your situation when you establish coverage, including that you had an LLC, where the vehicle is registered, and your primary garaging location, an out-of-state registration should not cause any issues related to the insurance claims. You should also ask if the LLC can be a working business or if it needs to exist strictly to hold just assets. So lastly, what happens if I get pulled over? Well, let's be real. Your UTV looks like it could climb a mountain and it's sitting in traffic next to a Toyota Camry. So most people have no idea that you can legally do this. And it includes a lot of police officers in that equation. If you get pulled over driving a street legal UTV or an ATV, the officer probably just wants to make sure that you aren't doing anything illegal. They will most likely check your license, your registration, and insurance to make sure everything is right. And usually that's all that happens. Just explain that your UTV is street legal, list the parts that you put on it to make it that way, and explain how your insurance coverage works. That should alleviate their biggest concerns. When it comes to street legal UTVs, we always suggest carrying a physical copy of your insurance card instead of relying on a digital source. Now, call me old school, but a lot of police officers, they're like that too. It's just best to remove all doubt and that a digital copy could create, not to mention your phone could lock up at the exact second you reach for it and magically okay again right after you've already gotten that ticket. So just carry a physical card in the glove compartment and you won't have to worry anything about that. Now, if you have any further questions, comments, please leave those in the fields down here below. I'll be happy to answer those things back for you. But until next time, guys, take care.